Ready. Okay. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would City Clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
Councilor Dilaba.
Here.
Councilor Fisher.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy.
Yes.
Councilor Powers.
Here.
Councilor Reed.
Here.
Councilor Scamperly.
Here.
Quorum present.
We have one presentation tonight regarding the Ogdensburg Growth Fund, and it will be made by Scott Wright, Chairman.
Good evening.
Hi, Scott.
We've been kind of putting this off, so if the board felt it necessary that we should come in and introduce the actual board of the growth fund, and give you a little background and a little update on the projects that we've been working on. So I think everybody knows me, but I'm Scott Wright, VP of Operations up at Pepsi in Ogdensburg. But I'm here as the chairman. But I want you to know that any of this work that we do is done as the board as a whole. We've had some interesting situations, as everybody else has. Most of our meetings have been virtual, so we've been trying to stay on top of any applications that we get in for new businesses. It's been a little bit tougher, so we've been doing everything as a committee as a whole. To get back to my original intent, this board was started in 1983. It was set up to actually help investment in local jobs, jobs training, jobs retention. At that point, the bylaws were put in place, and then we amended them again in January 2014. The biggest goal, I think, of the Growth Fund now is to make sure that any business that wants to step up, increase its employment, or need that last piece of investment to make sure their business can be a going concern, we're going to step in and try to help them. Who's on the board now? We do have, it's all volunteers, but we do have 4 seats where they're appointed. Those are our ex-officio members, which include the mayor, our city manager, the president of the Ogdensburg Chamber, Betsy Porter, chairperson of the ODPA, which is Stan Burns, and then our at-large members, Gary Hammond, Dallas Sutton, Sam Lamasha, Mike Brashaw, Mike Tooley, and Kim DeMar. We do have an administrative director, who is Andrew Smith, your city planner, and Tim Johnson acts as our CFO. Interesting to note there that any work that's done on behalf of the Growth Fund by them or any city staff, we track, we make sure that we're issued a bill and we refund the city any of that time that they do working on our work, our plans. They have to cut checks for us, so on and so forth. There's no payroll per se, but we do have to have somebody take care of that. So that's kind of been essential for us, which keeps us close to the city. So if there's a project that's going on where you may need some help, or you need extra funding, we're there as a backup for that. Some of the projects that I've been involved, I came on the board, I think around 2005, I was appointed by then Mayor Nelson. So I've been working on the board ever since then. The board's been strong ever since. They were instrumental in the post office job, getting the post office renovated and getting the U.S. post office back on there. At that, we overtook the Center for Sight. It wasn't the Center for Sight then, it was the old post office, and got that in rehab and put back on the tax rolls, with Dr. Son taking that over. One of the other loan recipients was JCP Groceries, which opened Save-A-Lot after PNC went out of business down here. We did a big part of the funding for the Hoosier DEC work, where they redid all their stats to bring them back up to code a number of years ago. One of the projects that we did try a couple of years ago, before you got your land bank and your zombie property program, we saw a need that we needed to start working on the housing stock in Ogdensburg. So we were approached by the city manager to look into, I think, Dan, you were with us when we were doing that, working hand in hand with the council to take over a house, rehab it, and get it back on the tax roll. There's a house on Rensselaer Ave, which actually ended up being a pretty good project, to get it back on the tax roll. It was not a good project for us because we're not property managers. So we realized it was over our head, and I think that planted the seed for looking at a land bank in the zombie property program to try to get some of the properties back on the tax roll. So shifting to, I'm trying to keep this as current financials, we have approximately $400,000 loaned out right now. We have $470,000 available. And we've got about $28,000 loans that are delinquent right now that we're working through that process. Some of the things we did with COVID-19, we put out a letter, and we saw that the IDA was looking at this as well, to postpone loan payments for up to 3 months. We did have 3 businesses in the city that took advantage of that, which basically just pushed their loan out 3 months with no penalty and didn't have to make those payments during the shut.
Scott, I'm sorry, how much in delinquent loans did you say it?
28.
Yeah, exactly.
And how much, I'm sorry, Scott, how much available?
$470,000 available. Those are liquid assets of the fund. So what we try to do when we look at loans, every now and then you'll have a large loan request come in, and you look at that, and you don't want to use up the full amount of that liquid asset, because if somebody comes to us and wants a loan, we want to make sure we have assets on hand. The way it works is, it was started with grant money, way back in, I think they got some loans that needed to be put out. The municipality can't act as a lending agent, so the growth fund was created to handle those lending assets or to handle grants that they cannot manage. So we would take that over, the board would take that over, and handle that through business loans back to either the municipality or the actual business that's doing the work. Most of those grants come in, they're tethered, so you have to use them for certain things. As they're paid back, or loaned out and paid back, they just become untethered. So that can be used in just about anything. You know, if you're opening up a restaurant or a store, you need some gap funding. We try to be a lender of last resort. We want to see some individual capital put into it, and we want to see other sources of funding. So if you've gone to a bank and you've turned down, we want to know why, and then we become that lender of last resort. We can take a little bit more risk on that. We also, during COVID-19, offered some low-interest loans. We had about $40,000 left from the Northern Border Regional Commission grant that if you didn't lend it out, you had to send back. So working with those folks, they actually agreed with the plan. We did some really low-interest loans, and I believe we had 3 takers on that. So we were able to give some low-interest small loans out to help with COVID regulations. So if you had to put plastic in your, anything you had to put up or buy to abide by the COVID-19 regulations, you could come and get some loans for that. One of the things that's happened in the last few years, we partner with the St. Lawrence County IDA a lot more often now. They're a lot larger corporation with full-time with Pat Kelly working on those loans. We're able to get in and help them with some of that funding. So if they can't come up with everything needed by that business, then we will come in and help with that gap. One of the biggest projects for that was the North American Forest Group, which is the company out of Messina, which just reopened the ACO manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
So we helped quite a bit with that. Not the majority of it, but we helped with that to get that back open. Saw that as a pretty important project to try to get that building back up and running and have some employees down there. We also helped in the administration of the Main Street grants. So that's Dillingham, Jones and Sissel, Phillips, Hosmer's, the Remington, the Cinema, and then the former Stewart's building down on State Street were part of those Main Street grants that we became the administrator for those grants. So that's the quick and short one. Our meetings are open to the public. You're welcome to come in. I think the biggest thing is we do keep those seats for the city manager and the mayor, so that no matter who it is, we make sure we have that tie to the city. When we did do that, the restructuring of the bylaws, we did take the appointments away from the council. That was a recommendation from a consultant at the time, where now if somebody volunteers, it just goes to the vote of the board and we approve that. We still take the oath and still work with Kathy on that. So, one of the things I didn't mention is we're audited every year, and we're overseen by the authority's budget office in your state. So we do have to file those reportings once, twice, 3 times a year, and Andrew is pretty essential in making sure that those reportings are done.
Plus, Scott always brings coffee and donuts.
Pepsi,
Pepsi for afternoon movie.
Thanks, Scott.
So you're welcome to attend. If you have any questions, give us a call.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks.
We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first public hearing is regarding an ordinance to sell properties to the Ogdensburg Land Bank Corporation. It will be bill number 84, and I will open that public hearing now. If anyone attending in person would like to speak regarding the public hearing, please come down to the podium, and you have 5 minutes.
Evening.
Evening.
I'm Phil Cosmo, and I'm the current chairman of the land bank. I'm not here to give our annual report, so don't expect me to be one of Scott was with his. We will do that hopefully at a meeting in November when we'll come back, probably the second meeting in November to fill you in on what we've done so far this year and what our plans are. What I'm here mainly to do is ask for the support of the council. I know you've been a big supporter so far, and I'm hoping you'll continue to be a supporter. There's an agenda item, I believe, the mayor just mentioned, I think it's item number 1 on your agenda for tonight. To transfer 11 parcels over to the land bank from the city. As I indicated, the support the council's given us in the past, and hopefully again tonight will help us to do, I guess, some cleaning out or sprucing up of some of the properties in town through the land bank program. And again, I won't get into all the details of what we can do and what we can't do, but I think the first step that we did when we tore down the 10 properties that we have torn down and are in the process of renovating 2 structures in town that will go fully back on the tax roll is a good indication of what we can do, and with the help of the council and the implement so far. So basically, I'm here to just ask for the support of the council as the on the agenda item you're working on tonight. And again, we will be back in November to give you a more detailed report of what we've done so far. So I will echo Scott's comments that the city staff, mainly Tim Johnson, city controller, Andrea Smith, the city planner, have been instrumental in helping us weed through the red tape, if you will. As we all know, there is a lot of that at times, but this is a program that's very well written, run by the state. It's a little hard to swallow at first, but they do a good job, and the program itself was set up for a very good purpose, and I hope we can get some support for the night. So that was my thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? If anyone's remotely attending the meeting and they'd like to speak, use the raise hand feature now.
I do see one hand raised. The person is registered as Liz Housen, and I will unmute that person now. Hello, Mrs. Housen? Audio is showing open there.
I think we can hear.
Hello, would you like to speak?
By mistake.
Yes. Is there anyone else?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, I declare this public meeting or hearing closed. The next public hearing is regarding an ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at public auction. The property is 947 Ford Street. It is going to be bill number 86, and I will open that hearing now. If anyone attending would like to speak, come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes. If anyone's attending remotely, use the raise hand feature, and you'll have 5 minutes. Is there anyone, Kathy?
I do not see any hands raised.
I'll declare this public hearing closed. And this brings us to personal appearances. At this time, anyone attending would like to address council, please come down to the podium. You have 5 minutes. You will you will talk to the council as a whole, you will not speak to any councilors or myself individually, and there will not be any personal attacks. So anyone would like to talk, come down, please.
Good evening, James King, citizen of Ogdensburg. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. How has it come to this? The four of you, I mean, you simply made a debacle of the city politics. And for what? Personal gains, grudges, or is it an infantile response on getting your way? Because one thing is for sure, it is not in the best interest of the citizens of Ogdensburg. Why are you so scared of a referendum on the city charter? Why are you and your little gang of three hiding behind the city attorney?
You're
You say
to
you have no
talk to
support.
the whole council,
You
please.
say you do not have the support, or you have the support of the people that put you in office, then let there be a referendum on the ballot in November. Let the citizens of Ogdensburg, who you revere and are eager to serve, make the, informed decision. I think I can answer that question. In the city of over just 6,000 registered voters, 1,980 voted for mayor last year. You, sir, had 1,264 of those votes in the write-in. Mr. Ashley, Mr. Lamachi garnered 716 voters combined. For those doodling and smirking, I will do the math for you. The three of you do not even draw the 1/3 of the registered voters that the election could have had. So in short, with the ever doodling support from the 1,264, they wrote you in added to the possibility of 4,000 other voters, you would lose your battle to change the city charter. Just come out and be honest and tell the people that is why you do not want it to be voted on. You say you want to lower city taxes. How do you lower city taxes? By cutting rec director's jobs and then proposing to bring it back in a different form. Same job, same responsibilities. You say you want to lower taxes in the city. How do you lower taxes? By forcing out a competent city manager of $118,000 per year for a severely less competent puppet at $120,000 per year. Simple to do if you're playing the misdirection game. You know, play games with jobs, city services, and protecting the people with one hand, and then install your own personal string-operated people in the left hand and hope no one notices. Please explain to the electorate how this is justifiable. Once again, I think I can answer that. If you meet in secret, most likely in the Sherman Inn, agree to change job duties of the city manager, get a good yes man, and break your vote 4-3, you now have a form of government that's not for the people, but for people. How is this not a corrupt form of government? Councilor Kennedy, Howard, and Susan, please continue to fight for what is right and just, and know that the majority of the city is proud to stand with you as you stand for the citizens of Ogdensburg. By the way, tomorrow is Tuesday, September 29th, 2020, and you, sir, will still continue to be the most corrupt mayor in Ogdensburg.
Would anyone else like to speak? Anyone else like to speak? You have 5 minutes, please.
Hi,
Hi.
my name is Brittany Vine, and I'm speaking today in support of the Ogdensburg Police Department. I have lived in Ogdensburg for only a short time of 8 years, and my husband is a lifelong resident. I have a master's degree in human resources management, and after several years' experience with staffing and management of payroll budgets, I am here today to present this to you. On tonight's agenda, there is a topic regarding cutting OPD dispatchers, which unfortunately we know will be voted in approval. This may fall on deaf ears, but it's meaningful for our first responders and dispatchers to know we stand with them today. Currently, OPD dispatchers are responsible for accepting incoming emergency calls and dispatching officers to complaints. There were over 10,000 in 2019 alone. In addition, they answer all incoming calls, assist the public who walk in with needs, and watch arrested individuals awaiting arraignment. For example, on September 25th, between 3 and 6 p.m., the following calls were dispatched: a fight in progress, 2 assisted citizen calls, 2 noise complaints, a second fight in progress, and a domestic incident. One of those assisted citizen calls had to wait over an hour for their complaint to be responded to, with 3 officers working. On September 25th, in the 3 to 11 shift, there were 22 calls dispatched. The acuity of these calls varies, but as you can see from the brief examples, our dispatchers play a significant role in the operations of our officers. In today's society, these men and women are in one of the most dangerous and thankless careers. It amazes me that people still enter this career field, knowing the challenges ahead, and I commend them. I am thankful that the majority of the public will never have to experience the life-changing events these first responders face every day. The amount of times my husband or his coworkers have experienced life-changing trauma is something I wish on no one. So I look to you today, as human beings, at what expense are these decisions being made? These fine men and women will take every cut you make, every schedule change, and they will continue to put their uniform on each day and show up. They will find a way to make it work, but again, at what expense? At what expense on their mental health from carrying around the weight of these traumatic experiences experiences, at what expense to their physical health, from call conditions, constant overtime, and rotating shifts. I refuse to see another one of our brothers or sisters take their own life. So I ask you today, please be sure you're making sound and informed decisions. A few months ago, it was decided that 4 officers were to be cut. Officers who were already manpower and 2 who were almost complete with field training. We are now at the point, due to lack of prior assessment, where officers are needing to be hired back. We had trained officers already, and the cost of sourcing and training new talent is much more expensive than retaining them. We ask that you not make this mistake and this judgment again. My personal experience with managing staffing levels is broad. However, I do know that if you continuously expect employees to do more and more with less, the quality of work put out decreases. Engagement and mental health and physical health suffer. Turnover starts to occur, and less qualified individuals with less training come in. You are not staffing cashiers or local retail chains. These are men and women responding to and handling dangerous situations and are responsible for human life. Wouldn't you want to retain the most experienced individuals, many of whom are veterans and long-standing members of this community? I understand that changes need to happen and cuts need to be made, but the TV also understands this. In my experience, you need to gain feedback, complete financial and operational assessments, and explain the why. The process for eliminating first responders and support roles shouldn't be easier than the process for requesting to hire additional staff. In closing, I present to you these questions. Have you sat with the dispatchers to know and understand their assigned duties? Have you watched and assessed their workload? Have you identified the future barriers that exist by eliminating this role, and what its impact would be to the community? If so, how and what is your plan to overcome them? Have you asked the tax-paying citizens their opinion of no longer being able to physically walk into the TV for assistance? The ability to directly communicate with an officer one-on-one is invaluable. And lastly, have you completed a total on-site inspection and assessment of equipment at the police department, specifically in regards to the portable radios? If so, what is your plan and where will the money be pulled from for new radios? Currently, there's an ongoing issue with officer-to-officer communication from only a few blocks away. How will this work with county dispatch? As a concerned police wife, I look forward to hearing how these barriers will be addressed and what the future plan is to keep my husband, his coworkers, and the community safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
I knew you were gonna say all that. Corey Maxner, Police Supervisors Union President, spoke to you guys previously. Before I get started, I do want to say, on behalf of our union, that there has been some progress. There has been. We now have the chief we needed, and swearing Drew in, those are steps moving forward. So I'm not up here just to speak about things that need to be improved. So I'm also up here to thank you guys for doing what you have done to make some of the changes you have. One thing that we are extremely concerned with was the recent staffing level changes last Thursday that were implemented in our department. Changing our staffing from 3 officers on Friday and Saturday nights down to 2 officers is going to be very difficult to make happen. Our minimum staffing changing from 3 to 2 now is going to create a system where we're going to end up having to call people in a lot more. We have a hope that people are available. Obviously, that's overtime rather than a scheduled person. But we are concerned there, and we have demanded the impact bargaining over that, which will happen in the future. We still have 2 lieutenant positions unfilled that have now been unfilled for a few weeks. We are concerned with that. There is still a lot of work that those 2 individuals did that our current chief is basically trying to do the job of 3 people. He's had to delegate a lot of that work down, and we're making do. You know, we're doing more with less, as you say, we need to do, but it's not going to work long term. So that situation needs to be remedied. Lastly, the dispatcher situation. Obviously, that's on tonight's agenda. That the dispatchers would be eliminated at the end of the year, going over to county services. There's a lot of logistical issues here, and I'm not asking for all. I'm not asking
asking that it's all or nothing, which it seems to always be right now for some reason. I'm asking for a discussion. I'm asking for some research. I'm asking for everyone to understand each other's point of views. And I understand you need money. I understand there's budgets. I do understand all that. But there's a lot of issues I think that you guys might not understand because you don't work in the day-to-day activities that we do. Who is going to answer the phone during the day? Monday to Friday even, if we have no dispatchers. There's still calls that come in that we don't have a complaint for, but somebody calls and needs to speak with a detective, or somebody needs to speak to an officer about a case that's pending. They still need to make contact with us. We need to have phones with somebody answering them, even if they're not necessarily taking a complaint at that moment. One of the things in the resolution says that the technology is currently in place. That is extremely false. If you actually knew our current technology situation, it's not in place. If dispatching were to go to the county, familiarity with our processes, our addresses, our people, there's without going into details of certain calls, I can't tell you how many times I've had a dispatcher think outside the box because they know the city, they know addresses, they know the people we deal with on a regular basis. That stuff, you can't put a dollar amount on that, and it's invaluable in my opinion. Have we thought about hybrid situations like Canton PD does, where they don't have a midnight dispatcher, but they do have dispatch during the day? These are conversations that should be happening rather than just saying we're doing away with them and they're going to the county at the end of the year. Those are the conversations that should be had. What are we going to do about our holding cells when somebody's in lockup? Now you're going to pay somebody a higher rate of pay to sit in the station on overtime. You're going to pay an officer or a sergeant, a lieutenant, detective, whoever you can get to answer the phone at that moment to come in, and you're going to pay them to sit and watch a TV screening for the person who's in lockup. And that might be 14, 15 hours. So we already have people there doing that. So why get rid of them? Emergency calls, calling in personnel. I don't know how many times I, as a supervisor, have to come over the air and say, dispatch, get me somebody in. Call me 2 bodies in. So we start locally and then further out. So that happens all the time. It's not something that's once in a while type of thing. It's something that happens weekly. Not to mention with calls that do go through 911 now, there's always a delay. There's a couple-minute delay. By the time 911 takes that call, they put it into our Stoneman CAD, and then it pops up on our computer, and then somebody has to handle it. So just understand that. Your response time will be delayed. It will be delayed. It has to be just by the logistics of it. So thank you for your time, and I appreciate everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one, speak.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Before I begin tonight, I just want to be sure that everybody understands that there are people outside that may want to speak. So I know the guys in the back are doing a great job, but I do hope that the people that have been locked out of City Hall have an opportunity to speak their mind.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Angie McRoberts, and I reside at 337 Proctor Avenue. I stand before you tonight with a heavy heart and a restless mind. Since January, we have witnessed what many say is the most controversial administration the city has ever seen. No administration is ever perfect, comes without baggage or difficult decisions. However, you have taken it to a new level. A writer named Charles Bukowski once said, "The difference between a democracy and a dictatorship is that in a democracy you vote first and take orders later. In a dictatorship, you don't have to waste your time voting." This statement resonates with many of the citizens of Ogdensburg as they feel as though their voices are being lost in the shadows of your administration. You have silenced the voices of people with a great deal of experience and knowledge, something you have little of when it comes to politics and government. Great leaders are great listeners. You chastise people regularly and publicly. Please recognize that their disgruntled voices are simply voices wanting to be heard and acknowledged. Great leaders are transparent and communicate effectively. Discussions which omit members of this council, attorney access that is limited unless you have a majority vote, and your impulsive, unannounced decisions are all examples of your lack of these two characteristics. Your resolution tonight to amend the city charter and unilaterally appoint Mr. Jelly without any search committee or other applicants is nothing more than an example of a dictatorship. Mr. Dillabaugh, you stated that we needed to terminate Sarah Purdy because we simply didn't need the position. Is that going to be your position this evening, or will you be flip-flopping once again like city rec?
Please address the whole council, not individuals.
You said on camera that you would be willing to welcome a referendum, yet you are making it clear that you don't want the people's voices to be heard. Lastly, I'm calling upon City Council to investigate posts from Mayor Skelly's Facebook page on July 29th, 2020. On this date, Mayor Skelly cited work that was done by our DPW department, which included cleaning sidewalks and walls at the city mall. I would like to know if this was city-owned property or private property that was cleaned. Please know that the city charter states no councilor will give any orders, directives, either directly or indirectly, to any employees of the city government or interfere in the conduct of any department. Mr. Skelly wrote, on a chance meeting with DPW working on a water main break, I mentioned grass growing up on the sidewalk and spider webs on the wall. The next day, 2 hardworking men showed up and went to work. This sounds like a misuse of public resources for personal gain and should be addressed. I leave you with this last quote from John Quincy Adams. If your actions inspire others to drain more, learn more, do more, and become more, you're a leader. Thank you.
Thank you.
Local law for 311 Padding Street. Mayor and Council, your local law tonight to amend the city charter or call for a public hearing on section C9, C17, and C99 is nothing short of political corruption and a slap in the face to the people of this community. Why do I say corruption? Because you're taking away the right of our taxpayers in this community to petition you and hold some checks and balances when the taxpayer thinks that there's something wrong with what's going on here. And you're taking that right of democracy away from the taxpayers of this community. The group of taxpayers presented a petition to block the charter change concerning duties of the city manager and giving the mayor and council the right to hire and fire. By your actions then and tonight, we're informed our opinion doesn't matter. I always felt sitting at this table we were sitting, it was important to be your own decision maker, listening to all suggestions and concerns from city residents. This is something you have not done in 9 months, or will you do in 4 years? It really is disheartening to know that not one of you can make your own decisions. As a counselor, you might want to put into practice the 3 R's. Receptive, reasonable, and responsible for your actions. It might go a long way in moving this community forward in a positive direction. As mayor and council, you still don't understand your own responsibilities and authority. You want to make changes to the city charter. Read today, you want to go to the volunteer fire department. You want to change all kinds of management steps. I'm going to ask you 6 things. If you did a benefit assessment of all that, you don't know what that is, look it up when you go home tonight. How about a barrier assessment? Have you did that? Have you established how progress will be measured on all these things that you're going to do? What's your action plan development? If you're going to make these changes, you've got to have a plan, an action plan. We heard nothing about that. What's your communication plan? What's your pros and cons? You haven't told the taxpayer what the pros and cons of all these changes are for. What's it going to be? You talk about communication. Most other communities have established new communication channels and practices to ensure that all employees are participating in communication regardless of their specific work arrangement. Has that been done in the city of Ogdensburg? No. Has there been periodic reevaluation of communication effectiveness, which is warranted? No. Bottom-up communication is important too. so you don't just focus on top-down communication. Has that been done? Absolutely not. You know, monitoring morale and employee sentiment is important given the stress level in the current environment. Something I feel that you don't care about with our employees. The comment throughout this community that there's a lack of trust in this administration is an understatement. I really thought you could overcome this perception, but as each day, week, and month go by, and I watch the childish act and comment from the mayor, council, and manager, the city of Ogdensburg taxpayers have no confidence that you can move us forward. We went from being the envy of the North Country to the laughing stock of the North Country. You know, there's three major issues that face this city. And they faced the city in the late 80s, they faced the city in the 90s, and they face the city today in 2020. Economic development, taxes, infrastructure, increased youth activities, and annexation. Every mayor, council, city manager that set this table has gone through economic tough times. We are still surviving because we all, and I mean all, council, mayor, managers, and city employees work hard together to overcome our tough times. We did not bully our way through our problems and lie to the public. We all work through them with mutual respect. If this administration is going to do anything in the next 3.5 years or 4 years, it's time for you guys to step up. You want mutual respect, then give the taxpayers mutual respect. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Kathy,
Coming down.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I read the agenda for this evening, I was very surprised. I was surprised that procedures that had been in place previously, and I hired 2 city managers when I sat on council, that none of those procedures were in place. There has been no open communication about this. The city didn't know that you were going to make this appointment until this last week. And when I saw the amount of items on the agenda this evening, I thought surely they will do something right this time, and they will move the location of the meeting to someplace that the citizens could feel they were participating or observing their city government at work. I was appalled when I got here a few minutes late, and I couldn't even come in and add my name to this portion of the meeting, so thank you for allowing me to speak with that. But I think that you've got a bunch of people out there, over 50 to 60 people, some of which have left at this point, that are feeling they could not get their point across. And they were very, very upset that there were people coming in that had no intention of speaking, and they were given the 11 seats that we were given that could come in. Over 50 to 60 people standing there being told there were seats for 11 people. I still think it's not too late to postpone this meeting and have a meeting at a place where everyone could participate if they wanted to. I suggest the school auditorium. I suggest an outdoor arena, anywhere that the citizens of this city that are feeling so downtrodden and so left out and so dismissed could at least participate in this. I just don't understand why you wouldn't want the respect of the citizens. I know when I came on council, I didn't get 100% of the vote. There were people that voted for other candidates besides myself. And I had one gentleman come to my office and say, I can't reach anybody, but I need help today. And I said, come in and sit down. And he looked at me and he said, really? You're going to make time for me? And I said, yes, I am. He said, but you know I'm the one that's been posting all those negative things in the blogs about you, don't you? And I said, yes, but I still represent you, regardless. If they supported you, they agree with you, we are represented by all 7 of you sitting there. So I ask that you still do what is right and have this meeting at a location where everyone can feel involved in their local government. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else would like to speak? Is there anyone outside that wishes to come in? Okay.
Has that been afforded to them?
Yeah, I think it has. I believe Rob's been working that. Do we have anyone remotely? And if you are on remotely, use the raise hand feature.
Okay, so, the first individual I have with the raised hand is registered as Cynthia Lang, and I will unmute that person now. It appears that Cynthia Lang is self-muted, and here the line is open.
Hi, Kathy. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. I'm here tonight to strongly recommend you do more research into Stephen Jelly's background before you foolishly vote 4-3 to hire him as full-time city manager. You are bringing him in, clearly underqualified, as another retaliatory move against the citizens in this community. Your belief that he has the best interest of this city is proven untrue by his daily actions against us, and quite frankly, every time he opens his mouth. His resume, although riveting, still lacks the financial degree required for city manager, and I see nowhere in there how he has even once developed or maintained a municipal budget. He also lacks the code certifications for fire chief as well. I would think as a city council, you would be extremely diligent in your search for a qualified city manager, since we are so financially strained. But yet again, another example of a retaliatory move rather than the best interest of your city at heart. We take so much effort, rightfully so, in conducting detailed background and financial searches for any city employee, such as our police, DPW, fire, etc. I ponder as to why Stephen Jelly's background wasn't given an equal amount of scrutiny. Is this because you're so blown away with all of his incredulous details and presidential references? Did you fact check even one of those claims? Or did you bring him on without a second thought because you knew his reputation of destroying communities and leaving town would better help fulfill your goal to demolish our city and turn us into a village? I think his presence in this city is an insult to your intelligence, and every day he is here for you makes you look more and more ridiculous. Since Jelly came in on July 1st, I continue to receive messages each week from countless others who have worked with him, for him, and been deceived by his actions while he took the municipality's money and ran on to the next town. Their overall message to us is to heed their warning. Stephen Jelly's only goal is to take $360,000 from our city's pocket and jump on the next train. Consider yourself warned. It's also important that I clear up any possible confusion regarding how the mayor thinks he hasn't lost the support of his voters. I'm here to personally assure you that he has. And more people are reaching out to me every single day. How do I know this? Because I'm one of them. I am one of the many that fell for your web of lies and the promise of a brighter future for our home. So if there are any voters left that still support you, I want to let them know that we all make mistakes we can learn from. It's okay to realize that we were manipulated and we grabbed that golden ticket hoping for a positive change. All that we can do now is become a part of righting what is so desperately wrong. All of you, you have 3 more years on this council. And I just want to let you know that I don't have any plans for the next 3 years. You're not going anywhere? Well, that's okay, because we're not going anywhere either. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Kathy, anyone else?
The next individual is registered as Felicia Dumas, and I will unmute that individual.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. So my name is Felicia Dumas, and I'm the Executive Director of the St. Lawrence County Community Development Program. I'm here to address the City Council in a completely different manner. I've been listening to your meeting, but we run the CDP runs the Ogdensburg Neighborhood Center, and I really want to make sure that the City Council is aware of the current state of the Ogdensburg Neighborhood Center. Our center has been located in the basement of City Hall for several decades. As far as anybody knows, at least 30 years. We serve over 200 families every month through the food pantry. And in the past year, we've served over 600 unique households within the city of Ogdensburg. When City Hall had to close due to COVID, we had to relocate temporarily. And this was done with minimal notice and communication. We definitely understand that there were some extenuating circumstances with COVID, but at the time, we really got lucky to find a temporary home on State Street so that we could continue to serve the Ogdensburg community. We had a partner who was very generous in lending us their space, because our center would have had to close and the low-income families in Ogdensburg would have lost access to our food pantry without that. The lack of communication during that time really leads us to believe that those that we serve and the ramifications of closing a food pantry during a national pandemic wasn't considered. City Hall has since reopened. And at the time that City Hall reopened, our agency attempted repeatedly to reach out to City Hall and the city manager with no avail. When we were finally able to reach the city manager, we were told that the space that we previously occupied in the basement of City Hall would no longer be available. At this time, our agency is looking for a new location for the Ogdensburg Neighborhood Center, and we have a deadline of mid-October to relocate from our currently donated space. So unfortunately, rent is not within our budget. It had not been budgeted for because we were partnered with the city of Ogdensburg and didn't have to pay rent in that space prior. So any rent that we have to pay at a new location will really detract from our ability to provide other assistance to the residents of Ogdensburg. And I address the city council because in other areas of the county, our agency is a partner with the local government. Oftentimes, space is made available for our neighborhood centers because we serve those communities. Sometimes the local government supports our services financially. I'm really disappointed that in Ogdensburg this is not the case, and I just hope that in moving forward we can have a better working relationship. So thank you guys for listening tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else, Kathy?
Yes, the next individual is registered as Deborah Montgomery, and I will unmute that person now. It appears that person is self-muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of things, and I have to be honest, I didn't write anything. I was not prepared, but listening to what's been going on, I had to raise my hand, okay? This town, this city is being destroyed from the inside out. The people who are supposed to be the leaders and take charge and make things, quote, better, unquote, than they have been in the past are destroying our city. You are taking everything that has been cherished and just throwing it all away. I don't understand that, okay? Now, you guys all know that there are a couple little groups that everybody's in and we all talk and whatever. And I just wanted to share this little tidbit, okay? I wrote something, just nonchalantly wrote something, my opinion, and I got a message from one of the people on the council who said, why didn't the taxpayers and voters have a say during contract negotiations without any discussions or voter input, agreeing to huge multi-year contracts on their way out the door? That's what I'm upset about. Now, here's my question, okay? If you're upset with those people, that's on you, take it up with them, but do not screw around with our city. You got the voters really up in arms, and I think you guys are gonna find that there is gonna be a reckoning, you know? So that's about all I got to say. You guys all have a good night. Thank you.
Deb.
Anyone else?
Yes, the next individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears your line is open, sir.
Good evening. This is David Price. I'm not sure if the council can hear me. I just have a few things to say. I apologize for not having a written statement because I didn't plan on speaking tonight. But after listening to people speak and hearing what I've heard, I thought it was an opportunity to at least address council. So this council, and again, I'm addressing the whole council, clearly has no plan. And I know that because what it looks like when you have no plan is you change your ideas on the fly. So your first ideas were to get rid of a city manager, to get rid of a rec director, and now your idea is to hire a city manager, hire a rec director. Also, I know when people aren't paying attention, I know Mr. Reach needs to leave right now to maybe have a cigarette, but he should be sitting down and listening. But either way, at least we're not looking at someone doodle. Thanks, Brian Mitchell, for that. So
Please, don't make it personal.
when you
Dave.
have no plan,
You've been on
when you
council, you know that.
I appreciate that, Mayor, but when someone leaves while you're speaking, that's a pretty personal move too. So you're the presider over this meeting. You should not allow people to leave while a citizen is addressing them. So because there's no plan, we flip-flop back and forth. And this is what's happening now. Now I have not one thing against Mr. Jelly, not one thing I can say bad about him. But I will say it makes no sense to pay more for a city manager now than we did when we had a city manager who was doing the job. My second point is, while we're in a situation where we are looking at cutting public safety, we need to look at, just 5 years ago, Ogdensburg was listed on a report that said we were one of the 50 most dangerous places to live. Now, before I get blamed for that, because I was on council, that was the year before I took council position. So 2015, Ogdensburg and Messina were both listed as the top 50 places that were most dangerous to live in New York State. And now we're cutting public safety. I think we need to take a look at that. That doesn't make a lot of sense. If we're trying to protect our public, we're trying to protect our citizens, we're trying to protect our residents, we're trying to protect our taxpayers, our voters, all the people we care about, now is not the time to cut public safety. We are one of the most dangerous places to live, according to a survey. Okay. The third point I'll make is it is amazing to me that on this night, when such important decisions are being made, it is the first time that we have locked the doors to City Hall. COVID is not new. Meetings since COVID are not new. However, you locked the doors and prevented people from entering. I made a phone call to Channel 7 News to let them know that was happening, because I don't understand why we would lock doors to keep people from entering unless you want to silence the public. Now, it doesn't take many connections to figure out that between a lack of a support for a referendum, between a closed doors meeting that points a city manager, and now that we lock the doors so that the public can't come in, you are purposely trying to keep this citizenry from having a public say. That's despicable. Shame on you.
Is he done?
He must be.
Okay.
He's back.
Listen, Noel first, please. You will be kicked out if you keep it up. Officer, please remove him. We put up with enough.
Hold your hand.
Kathy, is anyone else on the?
I do not see any other hands raised. I don't think it's popped up. I do, for some reason, there is an individual with their hand raised. That person is registered as Brian Mitchell, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted, and your line is open now, sir.
Good evening. Just a couple points that no one's brought up. This current council, well, I should say the four of you, has made nothing but a point that anybody
Please,
in a
Brian, you've been on council. Refer to the whole council, please. You know the
I'm
rules.
sorry, I know you can point out people, so I realize you're trying to cut the citizens off from doing it. But anyways, there's
I
been
will
things
cut
out.
you off, Brian, if you don't do the by the rules.
You are beautiful. I hope Channel 7 sees this, because you're just making a better name for yourself. So back to my point.
Officer, please remove Gerald.
I'm speaking, Mr. Mayor. Could I have the floor?
Well, I'm going over here. You have no right to kick me out of here.
Jared.
Come on. Okay, Brian, please proceed.
Okay. So the majority of council, I should say, has asked all our department heads to live within the city. Do we have a timeline of when our new part-time temporary city manager is going to move in the city? Because I don't think that's been discussed, not put in the contract, anything, and no one has brought that up. Going back to the other thing, we just hired him directly. In the news, minorities and have not had any option to apply for this job. I believe we've clearly discriminated on hiring a city manager. Furthermore, we've looked at our cuts, we looked at our budgets. All we're doing is just firing out numbers. We have nothing set in stone as we offer $120,000 to an individual. Tonight, as everybody addresses council, I'm sure we're wasting our time, the votes, and everything will go on. I just hope that majority of council has a clear conscience on the decisions they've made, and they feel comfortable saying they've done the best thing for the city. I appreciate your time, and once again, it's unfortunate the situation we're in.
Is there anyone else, Kathy?
I don't see anyone yet, right, at this time yet.
Oh, come on.
Good evening. I'll introduce to some I know, some I don't. I don't really have much, but two of the guys that I represent were just walked out of here because they voiced their mind. This is only more of evidence of why we have an improper practice out there, is that you guys don't want to speak to the public, to the media, about what you're trying to do to us. I know that the council and the majority of board does not care. You guys can paint that any way you want. But this is ridiculous, guys. I mean, people being drug out of here for what? Because they said something? Because they spoke their mind? You don't care. The current construction of the council, with who you've hired, wants to silence people from speaking their mind. This is more evidence tonight by what you've done and how you've ordered people to not speak. That's ridiculous.
You aren't being silenced.
I'm not right now.
You go up to the podium.
No. We don't have.
It's my meeting, please.
We don't have those.
So go ahead.
It's okay. You can.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's all right. I think that I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you people. I do, with the council, with Ms. Jock, Mr. Jelly. But what you're doing is you're silencing people who are dedicated public servants. Why? Why? So that they can watch their livelihoods. I wish I had both my daughters on my arms right now to ask why that certain members, certain individuals want a referendum on their father's employment. Why? Why? To save money for yourself? Thank you.
Is there anyone else, Kathy?
There is an individual, that person is registered as Carolyn Spearkin, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted. Is your line open?
Hello. I'm just curious, are our council meetings being videotaped and broadcasted like they used to?
Yes. Yes.
And what channel can they be viewed on?
YouTube, right? On YouTube?
And do you post that link to the city website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, because I'm sure we're the laughing stock of our county. Thank you and have a good evening.
Anyone else?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay.
Mayor, we have one more for the one outside during
Oh,
that.
yes.
Again, I did speak at the last meeting, but for those of you that don't know me, my name is Valerie Zoe. And, I did not come prepared to speak tonight, but again, after standing outside for quite some time and not being able to get into the building and then finally having an opportunity to come in, I would like to address all of you. I've heard already several times since I did come in the door that, we need to address the entire council and not make this personal. And what I would say to each and every one of you is that you already made this personal when you attacked our city workers, our department heads, and you are threatening the jobs and livelihood of people that do nothing but serve this city. The last time I stood at this podium, I talked to you about 3 words: disappointment, disgust, and being duped. And tonight I will speak to you about service. Every one of you took an oath to serve this community. There is a proper way to do it. Follow the procedures, follow the charter that was written. If you need to change the charter, then change it by the rules that are established in that document. Do it the right way. That is all anyone in this community asks of you. That is all you were voted in to do, is to represent all of us. Not just the people that voted for you or you or you or you or you or you. Each one of you represents every person in this community. Serve according to your oath or don't.
Anyone else, Kathy?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, and this brings us to correspondence.
Mike, can I make the permission to go off the agenda?
No. Do we have any correspondence?
It's supposed to come up for a vote, by the way.
We have one letter. Would you like me to read it now?
Yes.
So I'm being dismissed?
Yes.
Thank you. For the record, thank you.
Dear Mayor Kelly and Ogdensburg City Council, for medical reasons, I am unable to attend the city council meeting September 28th. I know that scheduling a public hearing for the rezoning of properties we own on Covington Street is at this point just a formality, but it's exciting to have a prospective business come to Ogdensburg. I'm hoping that you will be looking favorably upon this project. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to get in touch with us. Thank you, Joe and Jane Baxter.
That's it? Okay, next we have our consent agenda. The claims as enumerated in general fund warrant number 15-2020 in the amount of $715,974.26, and library warrant number 15-2020 in the amount of $26,558.32, and capital fund warrant number 15-2020 in the amount of $81,478.50, and Community Development Fund warrant number 15-2020 in the amount of $0, and Community Renewal Fund warrant number 15-2020 in the amount of $18,426 as audited, be and the same hereby ordered paid. I so move. Second? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Kelly,
Yes?
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher,
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy. Yes. Councilor Powers,
No.
Councilor Reach,
Yes.
Councilor Scamperly,
No.
approved.
We have no appointments tonight, and this brings us to items for council action. Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. An ordinance to sell the following city-owned properties to the Ogdensburg Land Bank Corporation. Parcel number 1 is tax map number 48.072-7-30.
The numbers
We-
don't mean anything.
We've all read it, so,
I think a summary statement's good.
oh, yes, I'm.
I'm in agreement with that.
The summary statement does include the listing of all of.
Right, right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Which I think that's what you were doing, so.
Sorry, Andrew. Go ahead.
Parcel number 2, tax map number 48.079-3-16.1. Parcel number 3, 59.029-1-19.1. Parcel 4, 48.064-8-9.1. Parcel number 5, 59.030-6-34. Parcel number 6, 48.079-1-54. Parcel number 7, 48.078-8-16.1. Parcel 8, 48.072-2-47. Parcel 9, 59.029-1-27. Parcel 10, 59.000-5-28. And parcel 11, 59.022-15-20.
Make
That is the summary.
Make that one.
I'll second it. Discussion? Anyone?
Land bank is awesome. More properties off the tax rolls, and we're going to see something good benefit from it, so it's a no-brainer.
Doing great, Andrea. Thank you. Anyone else? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy. Yes. Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Manager Stephen Jelly.
An ordinance to offer city-owned property for sale at public auction. Be ordained and enacted by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York, as follows. Section 1. The following property shall be offered for sale at public auction by the City of Ogdensburg. Tax map number 48.071-6-13-9474 Street. The minimum purchase price of $1,550. This is a conforming parcel in the city's residential business section. Section 2, the city does not guarantee clear property title and transfer of property by auction, and conveyance may be made by quitclaim deed. City council reserves the right to reject any or all bids or to withdraw any parcel from sale. Section 3, this ordinance shall become effective 10 days after publication.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion?
What's this gonna cost us, just this one property to send to public auction? For the record.
Roughly, labor cost at time to do off, $5 to $7.
Including public notice.
This is the one council that's relatively new. Yeah, because it's fairly new, it hasn't done the lease for a while, that's why we thought it was option.
That it? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Chamberlain.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher, Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers.
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by City Comptroller Tim Johnson.
Let's read the summary. The resolution to approve the sale of former paper Curtis Street for $1,500 to Joseph M. Gazette and Beth Ann Levine.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese.
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
A resolution to call for a public notice and public hearing to amend chapter 221 entitled zoning. A resolution calling for a public hearing and public notice on the proposed ordinance to amend chapter 221 entitled zoning, section 21-8 entitled zoning map, parcels number 48.077-1-3.1 and 48.077-1-2.2 be rezoned from moderate density residential to residential business.
I'll move that.
I'll second it. Discussion?
I just have a question. Do we suspect there's a developer ready to rock and roll on this property here?
This is simply a request to rezone property, so
I know.
there's no requirement that the applicant submit a development plan.
Okay.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba,
Yes.
Councilor Fisher, Councilor Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilor Powers,
Yes.
Councilor Reese,
Yes.
Camberly.
Yes.
Approved.
Next item of business will be read by Counselor and Deputy Mayor John Reese.
This was, the wrong resolution, so what I'd like to do, is, amend it, and I'll read the correct one, if I may.
Do you have copies?
It just changes the wording, so it's not, as strong, and, it had been submitted, but somehow it got mixed up in the agenda, so this is the correct one. So it's a resolution requesting the transfer of dispatch services to St. Lawrence County, whereas on April 27th of this year, 2020, the Ogdensburg City Council passed a resolution accepting the New York State Financial Restructuring Board's recommendation that the city and the county work toward the transfer of Ogdensburg Police and Fire Dispatching to St. Lawrence County Emergency Services E911 facility in Canton. Whereas that resolution set a goal for the city and the county to accomplish this transfer to the St. Lawrence County E911 dispatch by November 1, 2020. Whereas all necessary equipment is now in place at the Ogdensburg Police Department to facilitate the switch to E911. Whereas the county is the central repository for all E911 keys imposed on the residents of the city of Ogdensburg, and is required under New York State law to provide this service. Now therefore be it resolved, the Ogdensburg City Council hereby formally requests that the St. Lawrence County facilitate the orderly transfer of dispatch of the county and provide this service at no additional cost to the taxpayers and 911 fee payers of the city of Ogdensburg effective January 1, 2021. And be it further resolved that copies of this resolution be delivered to the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators. I so move.
I'll second that. Discussion, anyone?
So it looks like we had a lot of, discussion brought up tonight by, Supervisors Union and some other people. Is there any answers to these questions about who's gonna answer to the public when the public walks in? Who's gonna man the holding cells that these guys do? It was also discussed that the equipment is not in place, where this resolution and this one that was brought from the floor both say that it is. It seems like, and it was thrown on us, of course, no communication, which has been brought up several times tonight. And so I don't think we're ready for it. I don't think there's all these lingering questions that have been answered. I'm certainly not going to support it. So, well,
This was approved in April, as it says. This is just a reminder to the county to follow through.
Has anybody followed up with the county? Is the county going to take this? Have you spoken to the county? They're raising their hand and said, bring it on?
They want,
Okay.
they want to.
And what are they-
Sorry, what?
They want to work on it.
Can you
Will it be
elaborate?
effective by January 1 of 2021?
My opinion, Council, largely they can be ready. The county administrator and I and the St. Lawrence County Emergency Services Chief will meet on Thursday to begin to hash out the details. Honestly, I did give them notice in April. There's been no movement on their part. First week I was here, I went and met with them, told them this is something that's first on my agenda, we need to work on it. I had not heard anything from them until we brought it up last week at our negotiating session with sales tax. That then motivated the board to come forward. So they've been put on notice and largely didn't take any action. I don't think there's any intent here to force anything on them, but if we don't take some definitive action to move it forward if they're not going to.
This was,
And we have money, I mean, just to be clear, we have money. The Financial Restructuring Board made this recommendation, they've offered money. This is not, this doesn't discount, anything, that was brought by the police, supervisors, union presidents. We've got lots of internal issues with things to work out. We're talking now about the transfer of the dispatching services. Nobody has said anything about the number of people we're giving up right away as we figure out all the functions of those current positions. So there may very well, be an orderly transition of how we do that, very similar to what you talked about. This largely will get the ball rolling with the county.
and to,
Talking about an effective plan by January 1st of 2021.
Is that a realistic
There's
time?
discussion there, we're still, I mean,
I don't
Brought up on
think,
the
no,
17th.
I don't believe full implementation necessarily, but if we don't get started with this, we won't even do the part that we can do. Everybody in the city today pays the 911 services through your phone bill. Yet we continue to have a 7-digit number. You pay for the real 911 services. We can begin using that effectively. We can start to phase in communication, with the police cars effectively. There's lots of things we can do to work forward. If we don't give the county some incentive to get moving, I don't believe anything will happen until. So I hope that from this resolution will come the motivation for the county to sit down, draw up a plan that I can bring back to council and say, maybe it takes 6 months, maybe it takes 7 months, but there's a definitive plan, to do that.
then the resolution's wrong. Has the potential of being wrong. So we're voting on a date that may, this may not come to fruition.
Voting on a resolution, council will tell the county it's time to get this. Present a different plan to us and we'll certainly look at it.
this was a recommendation from New York State a year ago. You guys were on council. I mean, it's oh, I'll address the previous council. Hasn't been done anything. Please. So, we can talk amongst yourselves. But anyways, it's been a year, nothing's been done, and, we're trying to push it ahead.
So is all the necessary equipment in place?
At the police station, we're about 2/3 there.
So this is wrong. All necessary equipment is now in place. If it's not currently in place, how can we move forward?
By January 1st, we'll be ready. There'll be no question that we'll be ready by January.
There you go.
So this needs to be an amended resolution because it's not now in place.
Not my area, Council.
Well, it's not mine either because I don't have the majority.
No, it's been sat on for a year, and, we're pushing ahead. So, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
I have a
More
question.
discussion? Yes.
I have a question pertaining to the vote because it was pulled from the floor. Does it take 5 votes or does it take 4?
It's an amended resolution.
Amended resolution is on this.
Okay.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Can I just clarify that we're voting on the amendment, so everybody knows, is that right?
We have to vote to amend and then vote on the amendment. Correct?
Yes.
That's correct. It's on the agenda.
All right.
Put that way, we are amending it.
Yes.
So it would be a call for a motion to amend,
Yes,
and then it would be a call.
that's what we did. We already did the motions of that to amend.
Mayor seconded the resolution.
I have a motion by Counselor Reach to amend, a second by the mayor. So this roll call would be to amend.
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Counselor Reach?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Approved. And now we'll vote as amended.
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
No.
Counselor Powers?
No.
Counselor Reach?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba?
Yes.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith. let's
like to
have some
call a
order.
point of order of discussion
Point of order, yes, okay.
for him.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Let's have some order, please. Andrea's up to speak.
Resolution calling for a public hearing and public comment on the draft alternative brownfield cleanup analysis, a proposed submission of a 2021 EPA cleanup grant for asbestos abatement and demolition of 212 Fourth.
So move.
I second. Discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Kennedy?
Yes.
Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Councilor Reese?
Yes.
Councilor Scantlebury?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba?
Yes.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
Approved.
Next item of business will be read by Councilor and Deputy Mayor John Reese.
This is a resolution to call for a public hearing on a local law to amend the Ogdensburg City Charter, sections C9B, C17, and C99. And essentially what it does is make it comply with state law in regards to the referendums.
I'll make a motion to
I'm happy to
move.
read the whole thing if you want me to, that's fine, that's good.
Yep, I'll make a motion to move this item. Second? Discussion?
So basically, several people here tonight spoke out that the public is being stifled. So the charter, the city charter is like a contract or a law, okay? When I was reading home municipal law, it's basically somewhere along the line, somebody submitted this charter and New York State approved it as is with the referendums. And so to me, I'm going to vote to leave the referendums in here. Obviously, the next bill I put forward to have the referendum that everybody seemed to want here in the city to give the public a voice. We serve the public. I don't see any reason to take referendums out of the city charter when it comes to these particular sections. I think it's been approved by the state. It's our law. It's the city's law, and I'm gonna vote no against this and support the public voice and allowing the public to speak.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Let's have some order, please. Any further discussion?
I can concur with Dan on this. This is just not enough for political, bully pulpit, if you will. You're basically taking the operations and as Sylvia made aware earlier tonight, the checks and balances. And I'm not talking about a fiscal ledger here. I'm talking about governmental operations and moving forward. This is pure bully pulpit here. It's to garner your own way, and who's to say in 4 years who's sitting up here, and then they're going to have to inherit it. This is not procedurally correct. To me, there's no checks and balances, and I will not support this in any way.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, so all that does is make it comply with state law, so we're just trying to follow.
The charter is accepted by state law, the Attorney General's office, and operations from municipal codes and administrative regulations.
The charter can't supersede state law.
I'm not saying it can. I'm not saying it can. Nothing in here. This is a complete role reversal of what you guys did 2 weeks ago. What?
He's speaking, not debate, he's speaking.
I mean, we have two legal opinions, this is what we're supposed to do.
Yes, and we have had requests for a lawyer, and we had 2 lawyers on this one, so, Kathy, would you please call the roll? Would you please call the roll, Kathy?
Councilor Powers?
No.
Councilor Reese?
Yes.
Councilor Scantlebury?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba?
Yes.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy?
No.
Approved.
Our next item of business will be read by Councilor Scamparelli.
All right. Resolution authorizing a referendum regarding local law number 2 of 2020. Whereas local law number 2 of 2020, a local law to amend the Ogdensburg City Charter in regards to the powers and duties of the city manager, was adopted on August 24th, 2020 by the Ogdensburg City Council in a 4-3 vote, and now states, Section 1, Article 4, C19, Paragraph 2 of the city charter, after an affirmative vote of a majority of city council, appoint and, when necessary for the good of the city, suspend or remove any city department head, except the city attorney provided for by or under this charter, except as otherwise provided by law by this charter or by personnel ruled adopted pursuant to this charter. The city manager may authorize without council approval any administrative officer who is subject to the city manager's discretion and supervision to exercise these powers with respect to the subordinates in that officer's department, office, or agency. And whereas local law number 2 of 2020 clearly alters the powers and duties of the Ogdensburg City Manager and City Council and violates C9B and C9C of the Ogdensburg City Charter. And whereas New York State Municipal Home Rule Law states every local government to have power, to adopt and amend local laws not inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution or not inconsistent with any general law relating to its property affairs or government. And whereas C17C of the Ogdensburg City Charter states, notwithstanding any other provision of law or of this charter, any action by the City Council to establish, alter, or abolish any city department, office, or agency specified in this charter shall be by local law subject to a referendum upon petition. And whereas C23 of the Ogdensburg City Charter states the administrative code shall prescribe all the functions of the city departments, offices, and agencies, and shall be amended by City Council from time to time upon recommendation of the city manager. However, no function assigned by this charter to a particular department, office, or agency may be discontinued, or unless the charter specifically provides for it, may be assigned to any other department, office, or agency, except by local law subject to referendum upon petition. And whereas C99 of Article 19 of the City of Ogdensburg Charter states, this charter may be amended in the manner provided by law. However, any local law which would create or abolish any office, department, board, commission, or agency, change any appointed office to an elective officer, change any powers of any elective officer, shall be subject to a permissive referendum. And whereas a petition containing 386 signatures of duly qualified electors of the City of Ogdensburg was filed with the city clerk on September 14th of 2020, and whereas the signatories petition that proposed local law number 2 of 2020, entitled A Local Law to Amend the Ogdensburg City Charter in regards to the powers and duties of the city manager, be submitted to a vote of the qualified electors of the city for their approval or rejection. And whereas a referendum may be subject to New York State approval, now therefore be it resolved, the Ogdensburg City Council hereby authorizes a referendum to be conducted at the next general election or by special election if the deadline is passed, to be included in the next general election. I so move.
Sorry.
Thank you. I just want the people to be heard. They went and they put a petition together. That was against local law number 2, and to try and stifle that, I think is completely wrong. Our charter is law. It's been approved by New York State. What I do have a question on, I also know, so we passed 2 local laws this year. One was regarding police chief residency. The other one was regarding to this transfer of power from the city manager to city council. It's my understanding, I believe, that New York State, possibly the Department of State, has to approve any such law changes in a city's charter. Have these laws been approved yet by New York State, local law number 1 and number 2?
I have received confirmation from the Department of State that local law number 1 regarding the police chief residency was accepted by New York State Department of State. I have not yet received the response regarding local law number 2.
So as of right now, we still have the opportunity to have a referendum, if I interpret this correctly. And New York State hasn't even approved local law number 2. So until they do, that law doesn't really go into effect, and the city manager clearly retains the power in the given charter that's already been laid out here.
The response that I received from the Department of State is first, the green card confirmed that they have received it. I received that card, and then typically within a few days, I received a formal letter from the Department of State confirming that the local law has been filed.
Local law number 2.
I have not received the
Oh.
local law. I'm just saying that's the normal.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I get the green card confirming they received it, because our local laws typically state when they go into effect, it's based on the date that it's filed. So I send them certified return receipt, that confirms when the Department of State receives them, and then they send me a formal letter indicating when they have filed.
so jog my memory. Local law number 1 and local law number 2, weren't they both at the same council meeting?
Yes,
And did the city clerk file the paperwork for both of these laws at the same time?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. And so, as far as I'm concerned, local law number 2 hasn't been filed with the state yet. It's completely null and void right now.
Do we have a legal opinion on this?
Yeah, where is the lawyer? Strange how he doesn't show up. Thank you.
Let's have a little order, Dan.
So we'll contact the state.
Yeah, but our lawyers,
We haven't got any.
our lawyers say we not allowed to have a referendum.
I wouldn't know.
I think that was shared with you.
Dan, it's attached, you just have to read your agenda.
Well, I read
And
that.
the lawyer
Well, there
said
you
it's
go.
not legal to do this.
Okay, Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Reed?
Yes, I'm sorry,
He didn't realize what he was voting for.
I'm voting no.
That's a no, sir?
Yes, it's a no.
No. Counselor
Please,
Scantile?
let's have some order, please.
Yes, I definitely want the public to be heard.
Mayor Kelly?
No.
No.
You weren't for off, by the way. Counselor Fisher?
No.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes, let him vote.
Counselor Powers?
Hope we can keep a democracy, yes.
United.
Our next item of business is a resolution to appoint Stephen Jelly as city manager.
I wonder why we even need it.
And I think you're gonna read that, correct, John?
I can.
Thank you.
It's a resolution to appoint Stephen P. Jelly as city manager, whereas Stephen P. Jelly was appointed interim city manager effective July 9th, 2020. And whereas he has served in this temporary position for over 2 months. He has proven that he is qualified and capable of performing the duties of the position of city manager. And whereas Stephen P. Jelly meets the qualifications for the position of city manager as set out in section C18 of the city charter, now therefore be it resolved that Stephen P. Jelly is hereby appointed city manager of the city of Ogdensburg as per the terms of the attached agreement. I so move.
I'll second that. Discussion?
So I just want to make clear here, I'm certainly not going to argue against Mr. Jelly's qualifications or his professionalism. He wrote us a letter this week which mentioned that. I also believe he's got marching orders and he's carrying them out. And he was hired as a part-time interim city manager until the end of the year. There's still been no formal hiring process as of yet. At the time of the hire, when the minority council objected, based on this fact, the response from the majority was that we'll have a formal interview and hiring process, but this is just temporary. But now it seems that the majority council is going back on their word and denying the city the opportunity to interview other viable candidates. To handpick someone based on nepotism is simply wrong. And again, nothing against Mr. Jelly by any means. And I just think it's way too premature. And we haven't even seen a budget yet. I will not vote for this until this meeting.
have some water. Further discussion?
Several things that I have to comment on. I work with Mr. Jelly closely, working with hiring, police chief, advocating for officers. I am not making a personal attack on anyone. Upon reading through what the contract states, I feel as if we, could pay him more than Sarah was making. Sarah was, on paper, much more qualified in her city business running. I personally think that we did not open this up to minorities because you're afraid of letting women speak. I sit up here by myself on the council of all men, and I
Have some water.
That when this next, we were hiring a city manager, it would be open, it would be posted, and there would be interviews. I think that Mr. Jelly has the same right as anybody else to interview for the position with council, but I think there needs to be an interview process. I welcome him to apply. I think we should open it to minorities, open it to women, open up to everyone. We are in a place in this country where the minorities are speaking. Everyone is speaking. We have so much controversy going on. Let's put some controversy to bed. Let's let this be posted. Let's interview and let's select the best person for the job. And if that is Mr. Jelly at the end of this process, then that's what it is. But let's let everyone have a chance. We can't block out anyone. And that's exactly what we're doing. We are narrowing the search to the one pinpoint that the majority wants. I'm not saying Mr. Jelly may not be the most qualified for the position, but we will not know that if we do not open it up and we do not allow everyone to apply.
We're settling.
Any further discussion? Kathy, would you please call the roll? Please do.
This is no reflection on Mr. Jelly in any way, shape, or form. You look at the city of Watertown, they went through 29 candidates. They went through a headhunter, the former city manager of this city. And by doing that, most municipalities that operate under this form of government, I mean, again, I don't know why we're doing it, because ultimately you're taking everything away from them, you're going to pay them additional money than the previous city manager had. But that's where we're at. But going forward, this whole process is not being adhered to in any way, shape, or form. 29 candidates in the city of Watertown. They've narrowed the scope down to four, I believe four, that all have the qualifications. I'm not saying he's not qualified, and like Nicole said, and Dan said, if he's the top candidate, then he's the top candidate. But we were assured coming in, when this majority fired the previous city manager, coming in, that we would find an interim and that we would move forward in looking to go through the same process in hiring a new city manager by vetting the process. Every municipality does it in the manner in which it's supposed to be done, through an interview process, through the top candidates, by hiring a headhunter that goes out and looks for the individual. Happy to have Mr. Jelly apply, but in no way, shape, or form am I going to approve or support this resolution. There's been no discussion with any of us. Quite frankly, it never does. And that, whatever the case, but there's not even a courtesy here. I find out about this when the agenda gets put in my inbox. It's appalling. For that reason, I won't support this.
I would,
It's up to the chairman of the meeting.
No, Ron, not that time. Ron, we will have, a citizen participation later.
Are we opening ourselves up to a lawsuit by doing this? Is the lawyer here tonight? Can I ask the lawyer a question?
Nicole, John is speaking.
Sorry, John.
John, you'll be removed. John was speaking before. Don't go.
I can't believe you don't let her speak. She's one of you.
She
You
can
don't let her
speak after John. John was speaking first.
That's right.
What's some bullshit?
Please leave. Go ahead, John.
And I believe I did have the floor, because I had.
No,
I had a question.
John had it first. You didn't hear him. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
Do you want her to go first?
Sorry, Nicole, I defer to you. Please speak.
There you go.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Do we have the lawyer here? My question is, are we opening ourselves up to a lawsuit by not allowing this to be going out to have it posted? We have had, do we have anything from our lawyer? Because I haven't seen anything, and I don't have the majority to ask him.
Should ask for a fourth
Have you
person.
asked him?
Then jump on with
Hey.
her. Jump on with her, ask that question.
Police chief, would you take him out of here? Yes. Okay. Okay.
Could I have the floor, please?
Yes.
So from my perspective, we struggled, we looked around for different candidates, talked to a number of people. And,
You left the meeting, remember? You weren't there. So, go ahead, John.
So,
Please let John speak.
I think that we were very fortunate to find someone as qualified as Steve Jelly for this position. I've worked with him over the last couple months. I have a whole list of issues and projects, everything from the Ogdensburg tank farm project to getting that cleaned up, to the cheese plant, to the former Diamond National site, to sales tax issues with the county, and I've been very impressed with how quickly he grasps those positions and those issues, and is working with the different agencies on those. So I'm more than pleased to vote yes on this.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
The last two searches for city manager, Dan, I believe you were on council. And the first one, we spent almost $20,000 on it, and council didn't take any candidates. We were fortunate enough to get Mr. Pinkerton to step up when he came in. They found him, and he was a great city manager.
So, just to correct you, and not to, Mr. Pinkerton was one of the candidates. And so we didn't eliminate and walk away, then came Mr. Pinkerton. Mr. Pinkerton was one of the candidates, so.
Well, the Benito, group was the one that did the search.
Right.
Times.
Right.
And, Mr. Mazza, the point, he came back, and when I could read back in a minute, that, the problem they had was the pay rate was too low. And then you guys came back around at the time the council had sat there and raised it to, between 100 and to a top of 115, like 90 to 115. So you recognized you took his place that it was way too low when Mr. Pinker, when Mr. Pinkerton was on there and that there was a need to raise the price or the salary for the manager.
Yeah, we knew that before Mr. Pinkerton even came on, but he graciously offered his services for a lot less than what were originally offered.
But then the second time around, the same recruiting headhunters canvassed again, and they came back and we got Sarah, and it was, when she left, she was at 118. So that, there's not a huge discrepancy in the amount of monies that are being paid or that are being offered. And when she was hired, and it gradually went up, the 118, it wouldn't went to 120 anyway. If she would have stayed,
Yeah, I'm not arguing with you.
No, I understand
not arguing.
money and how it was so much out of whack, and it's not out of whack. And for the price of the headhunters and stuff, and the first one, I didn't know Mr. Creeper was on it. But it's, today's dollars, it's gotta be somewhere around 25,000, maybe 30,000 to do like the 29 candidates that Mike was talking about with water downstream. With the layoffs that we've done and the positions that were cut and the unknowns that we have no idea of what's coming down the pipe as far as the state, what's the end of the year with sales tax, and already starting into the budget, we're not standing very well. I don't think going back out spending another $30,000 at this point is a smart move. And he's proved himself so far. And you didn't have any bad to say about him, and neither did Mike Warnable. So I'm going to support him, and I think he'll do obviously well.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
One other quick question here. The $120,000, does that include your duties as fire chief? That does. That should be a separate stipend. That should be a completely different budget line.
We'll make it $118 and $2,000 stipend.
You just nodded yes.
No, I mean, because the charter tells him that's his duty.
So, but you're getting a stipend for being the police chief.
He's not getting a stipend. It's $120,000 for the city manager.
Pardon me?
Total of 120.
Well, that's.
He's still not.
Okay, that's fine. That's why I'm asking you. Because if you were, it should be a separate stipend. Right? I mean, I didn't know anything about this again until the other day.
Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Councilor Scamperly?
No.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Councilor Dilaba?
Yes.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
No, I didn't think we needed a city manager.
Let's have some order.
Councilor Fisher?
Yes.
Councilor Kennedy? No. Councilor Powers?
No.
Councilor Reed?
Yes.
Approved.
Okay, and this brings us to old business. Does anyone have any old business?
The seating situation in here. Are we allowing anyone,
Hey, let's have some order over here, you two.
are we allowing,
Just kidding.
families to sit together? I mean, I don't know what the,
No, we can't sit together.
well, I mean, but by law, I mean, executive order, they're allowed to have that, correct?
Excuse me, if families get together and they break the 60-foot to the 6-foot rule, and that messes up our social distance.
That's okay, it's kind of just jockeying the seat.
Yeah, it is. Not one.
We should also open that up. Another item, regarding fleet management. I understand we've returned the vehicle back to enterprise fleet management.
I think there might be a couple more. I think there might be more than one that will be returned to enterprise. Once we found out some vehicles weren't needed, do you have a count on the number?
We're reviewing all the deliveries of the vehicles, when they're coming, what their intended purpose was, what the cost is. And council will get us a slate of all those vehicles in the other.
Well, I guess my concern is, we're harping on the FRT here, and yet we're kind of neglecting the recommendation. Could this potentially harm any of our funding here that we're gonna get from the state regarding the fleet management?
No. The state will fund.
All 200K, we're good?
The state will fund 50% for the first 2 years of our.
If we don't do it wisely, we won't save money if we take vehicles unnecessarily just to take them.
I understand that. I guess I'm just making sure that we're going to receive the funding.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand you've had a conversation with a member of budget.
Enterprise.
And we will, and again, in the budget process, during a couple of weeks, council will get to review each and every vehicle and each and every cost.
Of what we're going to have.
What's being requested and what you will be able to.
Going forward, I'd like to see a makeup, not burden with any more work, but a full makeup of revenues, the updates on the majority of the grant procedures going forward, wastewater sewage treatment plant. Council Reese made a motion a while back to the previous city manager over a 5-year tax assessment going forward, sales tax, recognizing we're in no big negotiations with the county, but going forward, I'd like to see all the revenues that we've got to date prior to going into the budget, and any major outsources to include all attorney fees. And shared with all of council.
I'd also like to know where we're at with an alternative location for city council meetings. This is not working. Putting 60 people outside and filtering them in is not working. We can do better as a city. As a governing body, we have to do better. Where can we go to fit?
We kind of brought this
We've
up.
this is probably the 10th time I've asked for an alternative location. We have the Lockwood Arena. Why can't we put a chair every 6 feet? We can probably get 100 people in there. I will gladly sit in a steel chair in front of a 6-foot table and yell so that everyone can see.
You still have to deal with people who are on virtual, and we just got a sound system, we're being updated. We're updating our system here for people who are virtual, so if we go out there might be a problem for them to participate.
They still can't hear us. We've been updating it for 6 months and they still haven't heard us for 6 months. So what's the difference if we do it now? Whether it's such an increased public desire to know what is going on in politics, we can't shut them out. We have to figure out a way to do better. And putting a camera in where they can't hear, people are clicking their pens, the papers are being rustled, it's not working. We have to do better.
The exact directives of the state that they've given us.
But it gives no direction on an alternative location. Why can't we use
And I
one
know
to pack the house?
no other municipality in St. Lawrence County, they're all doing it the same way.
I got locked on my iPhone, and I had equipment.
Right, and how many people?
And you sit outside.
Mayor, I would like to call some order here, please.
Yeah.
Mayor, please. Thank
So,
you.
we do have new speakers that are probably be here for the next meeting, which will help.
Maybe a jumbotron outside of City Hall steps, really we can project outside, because we have to do something. This is.
We have any money for it?
I have a projector, I will gladly bring it and set it up outside so you can figure out.
Set her up.
We have to do something.
Any further on that?
Cool, but, I was gonna go there, but, I have one other item, I don't know if this is, I'm not sure. I'm a little bit bothered by the fact that, and I get your position with labor, and, that's between us, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of bothered by the fact that there are no real discussions going on with the labor leaders of the department heads that are coming down. We heard from the supervisors unit of the OPD, there's been some direction given, myself personally being a labor leader, I can understand the position that they're taking. They harp on communication. The governor of the state of New York encourages communication, strong communication. And, going forward, I think that's something that needs to be addressed and done adequately. That's it for me, old business.
Any new business?
New business, I have new business. I got a couple items. The first item is the recent change to the fire department and EMS service response area. Can we get an explanation on what's going on here? That we're only covering within the specific city limits?
It's incorrect. That's incorrect. Have you?
Well, we're going to cover it if there's a call. Is that correct?
We're always called. We're called along with Uvalton.
Because 911 used to
same time.
simply call Ogdensburg. For example, Advanced Auto one day, I was standing at the counter, the guy next to me drops. I look at the guy, call 911. I go to keep the guy alert because what do I know? And within, I swear, 3 minutes, Ogdensburg Fire Department, bang, there. I couldn't even believe how quick they were there. And it's my understanding that the changes that are being made are going to slow that process down tremendously. And so can we get an explanation as to what the old system was, which was obviously 911 calls Ogdensburg, and what the new system is? And then when we do, I want to ask a question now. So the businesses that are outside of town, but they're hooked up to city water, they pay a special user fee that is equivalent to the Ogdensburg tax rate. that user fee is supposed to cover fire and EMS. And that's the bill of sales that we were sold, I'll bet you, 7, 8 years ago. I was sitting right here. I don't think my seat's moved. I think I've always sat here, haven't I?
Yeah.
And, but that was the bill of sale we were sold. And when you get your water bill, okay? If you have your water turned off, I know, because I got a little house next to the one I live in, and I turned the water off. And so my water bill got cut in half, and now it says fire protection fee. And so clearly the water rate and the user fees that people are paying outside is supposed to cover EMS and emergency services. But yet, it's my understanding that they've been, I don't know, depleted or what? Can we get an explanation on what happened here and what these people are actually paying?
Are you ready for this? I think it's still being formulated, isn't it?
It's his direction. Yeah, I'm ready for it.
You're the fire chief, let's roll.
I'm ready for it.
Okay.
First of all, Council, this board provides EMS to, the Ogdensburg Volunteer Rescue Squad and Special Service. We pay them nothing. Nothing. We pay the Ogdensburg Volunteer Rescue Squad nothing. No money.
Well,
we contribute nothing.
We plow their sidewalks.
We contribute nothing.
Give them a bolt.
Our money we contribute nothing. So we have no jurisdiction on that. The changes that we made were nothing more than administrative. The 911 dispatcher still dispatches to those close proximity businesses, as you and I previously discussed. But I do appreciate the opportunity to address it. I signed an agreement with Morristown a couple days ago that basically codifies and provides a legal pathway for us to provide HOAs in Morristown. Hubleton will get theirs approved by the village board, the governing board, the only board that has the authority to approve an HOA agreement for village fire department is the village board. Not the fire chief, not the president of the fire department, nothing like that, the village board. This all, for your knowledge, was brought to us by the St. Lawrence County Department of Emergency Services after discussion in Hubleton, and then my discussion with the mayor of Hubleton, who said she's addressed this not once, not twice, but at least 3 times since she's been mayor, and asked the city of Ogdensburg to correct. So we did as a corresponding neighbor, asked us, basically brought our documents into compliance. There's no change to the response. There'll be no gap in dispatch time. But what we will not have is our units self-dispatching, putting the city at risk, should a lawyer for another organization say that they weren't properly called, we turned the truck over, get in an accident, and God forbid somebody did that. So what we did was absolutely according to the law, at the request of another government. It wasn't something we born here, wasn't something we were looking to do just because we got nothing else. There is no fee that we charge for people for fire protection outside the city of Ogdensburg. I don't know what you're speaking of. I'll certainly look for the village. Perhaps we're collecting some kind of tax through the water bill that has to do with it. I don't know. Yeah. But we have no jurisdiction outside the city limits. None whatsoever.
What you're talking about, Dan, is basically, you know what, there's water at the hydrant out there, you don't have your water on your house, but it was just really a way of the city collecting a little bit more, and because there is water at that hydrant and in the main, if they have to fight a fire.
There's a separate fee that is paid that is equivalent of the Ogdensburg tax rate. If you are one of the businesses out on 37 that is getting water.
And it's inside the city also.
Right. So they're basically paying Oswegatchie taxes and the equivalent of Ogdensburg taxes, and they're paying for that service. So if I understand what you're telling me is service will not be interrupted. It's just a formality that's being taken care of here?
Was never.
Okay.
And my guidance, if you were provided a copy, I'm pretty sure I did.
Yes.
It was very good. There was no interruption. It stated specifically there would be no interruption from business in the immediate perimeter of Ogdensburg.
Excellent. All right.
I have one request, that information comes out to us before it goes out to other entities, and then we find out about it on Facebook. I would prefer to have that information come directly from you, and I feel like a moron when I have to log on to Facebook and find out what is going on, and I got that information 8 hours later clarified, and I'm calling to find information out. When if I just had that information, maybe I could have relayed it better when people started to call me on it, and I could have said, no, this is what it is, but I didn't have that. So my phone's ringing, and I don't have the information to provide the taxpayers at least something to give them back that you're not in danger, but I couldn't say anything because I didn't have the information.
We were all shocked by that.
I'm not talking about I'm just saying that before information goes out, it should come to us.
It went to the fire department, and then that's where the problem happened, was not anyone on the council. It just,
Are we?
we were all shocked and surprised by it, and we were all concerned how people were
I was more shocked and
upset.
surprised at the fact that I wasn't provided the information, not what the information was. So my only request, I'm not finger pointing, I'm just asking that, can information please directly in a timely manner? If it goes out, so that went to the fire department at 8 o'clock, at 8 o'clock, we could have just been a simple CC on that email, and we all would have gotten that.
Well,
That's all I'm asking.
well, you know, he's the city manager, and he deals with departments, and we don't want to interfere with
Are you
that.
speaking from college
So.
talking to Mr. Jelly? So, that's all my ask was, to just get a simple CC on an email.
Counselor, I think you could attest to it. I provided information to the topic. I had no idea that what I thought was simple administrative action costs and fees and guidelines was going to be done.
I think that right now, everything is going to be a big issue.
Yep.
So going forward, I just think that if you think it's we just signed our name, it's the same exact thing, I still think it needs to come out because everything is going to be an issue. And I want to be informed, and when my phone rings, I want to be able to have answers for the people that are calling me. So that's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Any other new business?
Well, I've still got the floor.
Go ahead.
I interrupted your floor.
No, that's all right, because you were tapping on there, and that's good. Felicia Dumas made a phone call earlier, Executive Director of St. Lawrence County Community Development. I don't know, I'm not a good typer. Neighborhood.
Yep, community development.
And, apparently, they don't have a home here, and they're looking to revamp, if you will, their partnership with the city and get our neighborhood center back. Is that a possibility?
We're working on, Andrew and I have been looking for alternate locations. We've had a request from the court to take over the space currently occupied by the city on the second floor. We're trying to assess whether to those people on this floor. Excuse me, we've had a couple other requests for real estate in the basement. I'm just trying to put everything together and bring it to council. I have spoken with Felicia, Andrew and I did, we feel like it was an exhaustive search of locations in the city. Unfortunately, we didn't find any place suitable that was willing to do it for free. I did ask her to provide me what the range of costs were. We are working on it. It's going to be a difficult nut to crack. And then just in the last couple of days, they were given notice on where they were going to move on. So we're working on it. We certainly don't want to see it go away. I don't know that City Hall is the most appropriate location going forward, only because we may have a need for space to hold city operations as we're looking to make things more efficient. And I'm also concerned that this COVID is not over. Moving back in, only to have to move on. I'm trying to find a location that can be suitable and can stand the contingency operation. So it's not a I have been communicating. I think there was a period of time she couldn't get anybody when there was nobody to get a hold of, and then we've been trying to find a space.
Good.
Thank you. Do you mind if I offer a suggestion? You know, the Bishop Conroy there, where I think they have the.
Which I.
You look, okay.
It's privately owned, I believe. We've really been through the obvious ones. We're going to talk to the rescue squad about Hackett, the vacant space in Hackett. I mean, we're not dropping the ball. It's just not going to be. And even someplace like Hackett, I think has a lot of space. We could probably talk to the rescue squad and get a space. It's not exactly the central location of town where a lot of the clients have to walk. So I mean, we're working.
That's my new business.
That's it? Everyone got new business?
Yeah, I've actually mine was more about the food pantry as well, but to reiterate what Nicole says, we've got to come up with an alternative. I don't care if the municipalities aren't doing it, family municipalities aren't having issues that we're having. So, but with that being said, I think this venue needs to be put in a larger area to allow for more public forum. They want to be heard, and they're not being heard, and they're not hearing either. Like this, I can't tell you how many text messages I've got that I can't hear anything. Somebody's tapping a pen and I can't hear anything. Somebody's slapping their hands. I mean, we're all guilty of it. You're wrong, but going forward, we need to move this to an arena where, or a venue where everybody can be heard.
Okay. Items for discussion? right, and this brings us to citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak to council, come down to the podium and you'll have 2 minutes.
Just a couple of quick questions. Who negotiated the contract with the city manager?
I did.
Wasn't me. Didn't have any part of it. Didn't even know it was coming.
Sorry, Doug, what?
Who negotiated the contract for Mr. Jelly?
I didn't get it.
This isn't really a
It's the
question
same
and
thing.
answer.
It's not a question and answer, okay? I don't want Mr. Jelly to give me the answer, because every time I ask him a question, he does his job and gives me your answers. That's what you're elected for, okay? So the next meeting, I'll come back and ask you again, as Mr. Reed told me before, you give us the question, we'll answer it at the next meeting. So my question is, number one, who made the contract up? What's the contract consist of? When's Mr. Jelly gonna move into the city? Don't you think the taxpayers have that right to know? I don't have anything against him. I've talked to him 3 or 4 times and we've had some pretty decent discussions. We don't agree on everything, okay? But I think the taxpayers, you deserve to give the taxpayers that information. So when can we expect that?
I think you should get it right now, Doug.
That's right.
Why not? Who negotiated the contract?
We just hired
There's 4 of you.
Hey,
Who
let's have some
negotiated
order.
the contract?
We just hired.
Come on! Come on! Who negotiated? Did you all sit down together, the 4 of you, to negotiate?
We're going there, Dan.
I'm just asking a
Let
question.
him.
Get it, Mike! People got a right to be heard. Let them speak. You want me to leave too?
Yeah.
'Cause I'll leave.
Why don't you,
See you
Dan?
later.
Why don't you? Go ahead. Go ahead, Doug.
Just let us know, that's all. What is wrong
It'll all
with
be
that?
out. It'll all be,
Answer the
it'll all
question.
be out.
It'll all be out.
If you would think, right,
You already ratified
it
it.
would be all done.
You just passed a resolution hiring the man. It'll all be out.
You have a copy of it, it's yours, and you have a copy of it.
Can I give it to
when you
Doug?
answer
Can
us
I give it?
After the
Hey,
meeting,
don't
after,
say it.
Give it to
Question
them,
is,
it's public
who negotiated?
information.
Thank you. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm asking.
That's right, Doug, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way.
let's have some order. Doug, finish.
Yes, there is.
This is my last concern is, I feel, you know, he's in behind the nuts right here, okay? Because you know why? Because he doesn't have the power to hire and fire. You
No,
can tell
he
me
does.
all you want that he's gonna do the hiring. But I'll tell you one thing, when he hires somebody and it doesn't go your way, you guys are gonna fire him. Okay? And that is not right. To take powers away from your top administrator. Okay? That's my wife said, Mr. Jelly. What if this guy like him coming in with a new young boy, okay, wants to get himself into a position like this, because when he moves on, he is not going to get a favorable reference. And that's too bad for me.
Anyone else like to speak?
Again. We did discuss a few meetings ago that you were going to come up with a list of your duties. Does that list exist? Was it part of the contract? Do we need a city manager? We've just altered the charter. Hiring and firing lies with the council now. What duties will the city manager be responsible for? That was asked at least a month ago, and we still haven't heard that. I am disappointed that this council has not put this position up for the public to see, for the public to apply. Nothing against you, Mr. Jelly, but I would like to see his qualifications. According to the charter, I believe, he has to have 1 year of finance. There is a degree, there's a lot of background. He has a great background, but is it in city finance? Sarah Purdy had 23 years of experience. She had a degree, she had experience making $118,000 a year. Now we're paying $120,000. At a time where you claim that we are in a budget crisis, a $42,000 pay increase. Just something to think about. 42, from what he's making now, $1,500 per week, times the weeks of the year, $120, that's $42,000.
Anybody else?
Valerie Stovey again. I would just like to speak to the audio issue. As some of you pointed out already this evening, it really is not sufficient. When I was outside City Hall waiting to come in and the doors were locked to prevent anyone from entering the building until they were invited, I signed into the meeting and was sent the link so that I could sign into the virtual meeting, and I could not understand anything that anyone was saying, and I was standing 20 feet outside the front door of City Hall, and all I heard sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher. That the audio is terrible, and if it's being improved, you certainly can't tell it when you sign in, at least not on a cell phone. So please do something about that so that the public can participate in this process, please.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Is there anyone remotely? Cassie?
The first individual is registered as David Price, and I will unmute that person now. It appears your line is open, sir.
I'm only gonna make one statement at this point. I think I got cheated out of my 5 minutes, but that's okay. Mayor Skelly, just so you know, this is not your meeting. When you said this is my meeting, you're wrong. This is the meeting of the people. You're a servant of the people. You do our bidding. When you say it's my meeting, you self-serve, you show your narcissism, and we will all remember this.
Is there anyone else, Kathy?
Give me a moment because he dropped, and I have to find him so that I can mute him again, sir. 1 second. The next individual is registered as James Howard, and I will unmute that person now. It appears you are self-muted. Mr. Howard, it appears you are self-muted. The next individual is registered as Karen Ashley, and I will unmute that person now. Karen Ashley, it appears you are self-muted. It appears your line is open. Not sure if they're having technical difficulty or if they're hitting the raise hand by mistake. And when I call on them, they realize that their hand is raised. I do not see any other hands raised.
Okay, we do not. Go ahead.
So I just want to say that this is an unfortunate evening. This is the first time in my memory, and I have been following city government since I was about this big and could read the newspaper, that we did not unanimously support the hiring of city manager. And I think that could have been different this evening, because I honestly don't think anyone would have applied for this job except for Mr. Jelly. To come into this situation with everyone fighting and bickering and not sharing the information. So had you done an open call for city manager applications and sat in, you probably could have had a unanimous vote tonight on this because it would have been the only candidate, and you would have had more support from the community, more support from the fellow councilors, because at some point you will need that. There's going to be an important vote at some point where you do need 5 votes. And someone is going to have to support you. But the problem is that they will do the right thing and vote for what's right for the city, not just stand in a block of 3 to prohibit you from doing something.
And I say that to all the councilors here. So, with that being said, Mr. Jelly, congratulations on your new position, and it's a shame that you were put in this position. Thank you.
So we do not have a need for executive session tonight. At this time, I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Oh, opposed, adjourned.
John, you got a copy of the change?